You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
More of our community questions this weekend. We had so many answered yesterday. A lot of fun on very different topics. So hopefully you were able to check out that show at episode 1016. So that was over at stephencabral.com/1016. And today's show, since I did get a chance to peek at all the questions today, we have some longer ones. So whenever I'm not able to read the whole thing over the podcast, just because of time, so we can get in more questions, I do write all of them out at stephencabral.com/1017, and that will be today's show notes page. As always, really looking forward to getting into the calls. Hopefully you've tuned in for previous house calls. If not, it's good to have you on this first one. And what we do is we answer our community's questions each and every weekend on Saturdays and Sundays. My way of trying to give back to those people that I may never be able to meet in person or over Skype for one of our many virtual-based consultations. So a lot of fun to be able to do this. One thing I do want to let you know, and I will read these questions, but many of them could be answered the same day. So I hope that you're not waiting the 10 to 12 weeks it takes me to read over the podcast on the weekend to get your answer. I do hope that anytime that you need an answer from us, you're emailing over at cabralsupportgroup.com. Sorry, that's our free Facebook group. So you'll go over to cabralsupportgroup.com and you'll simply ask your question there. And then when it's an order-based question, you're wondering where a lab is or where you should ship a lab or et cetera, that's just at support@equilibriumnutrition.com, and we're happy to help. If you ever want to work with us in our private practice, you're welcome to do that, and that's at support@stephencabral.com. But remember, anytime you're really looking for any answer besides the customer service of checking in on an order, which is support@equilibriumnutrition.com, just head on over to cabralsupportgroup.com. That's the place where we all connect as a community. It's a free Facebook group, and we're happy to offer complimentary coaching right over there with my health coaching team. So these are for those questions that you would like my personal answer, and I'm happy to do that each and every weekend. So let's get started with episode 1017. Nathan's asking, "Hi, Dr. Ball. I followed you for several months and absolutely love your advice and has helped me tremendously from recovering from an autoimmune disease recently. I am currently healthy based off lab tests. No abnormalities, no longer test positive for autoimmune antibodies. Food sensitivities have gone away. However, I'm still having trouble going back to my regular body weight. I'm naturally an ectomorph with some slight mesomorph characteristics. I've lost 50 pounds in the last 4 months. However, I still need to lose 20 pounds to get back to my normal weight. Do you believe this body fat is being extremely stubborn to lose because of present toxins and inflammation still in my body? Eating organic, vegan, exercise isn't quite helping at this point. Water fasting also seems to not help me lose much body fat either. Is there any advice for someone coming out of an autoimmune that you'd recommend for best recovery? Should I fortify my gut with zinc, quercetin, glutamine that you recommend?" Yeah, really great questions, Nathan. And why don't I help you with this? So if all your labs look good according to your MD, then great. I just want to make sure that you've run an organic acids test and you've run a hair tissue mineral analysis to make sure that your gut really is shored up and that there is no additional kidney overgrowth or anything like that. And then also, the hair tissue mineral analysis will let you know if you have good enough mineral-based stores and that you don't have any heavy metals. So that's the starter kit. I would definitely recommend that. You're absolutely on the right track. I would recommend the Healthy Gut Support with the probiotics. So that's just called the CBO Finisher or the Heal and Seal. After you have any type of autoimmune-based issue or you've had a gut-based issue, we want to seal up the gut wall. We do that for 12 weeks and then you're done. So it's not a forever protocol. It's a 12-week, 3-bottle Healthy Gut Support, or I should say CBO Finisher it's called, because we do it after our Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol for those people that have done that. In terms of being an ectomorph with some mesomorph qualities, I don't know if I would agree with that because it would be very challenging for an ectomorph to get up to 70 pounds overweight. Very, very challenging. So I'm not sure if the dosha is exactly correct, but never mind that. Don't worry about it right now. Simply go by what you're dealing with in your current state. And what I would most likely recommend is a once per week cheat meal to get those leptin and ghrelin levels going. Again, you can call it a flex meal, call it whatever you want. And you don't have to even eat poor food. You just have to eat more starch or carbohydrates at one meal per week to make sure that we get your stores up high enough of leptin and ghrelin. And check out that podcast if you've never checked out those two fat-burning hormones, leptin and ghrelin. I did a podcast on that. So that's what I'm recommending there. And what else? And I would recommend after you do your once per week flex meal is that you do a 21-day detox to really pull those toxins out to allow you to really begin to get back to homeostasis. Sounds like you're doing a great job. I'm really proud of how far you've come, and congratulations on getting rid of that autoimmune dis-ease of the body. And now we know from Nathan and many, many others, of course, you can be dis-ease free. All right, Rigby is up next. Hello, I'm struggling with stubborn adult acne. I know it's an internal issue, and I'm ready to find a cure for the disease and not the symptom. Okay, excellent. Just remember, there's no disease either, because a disease is a collection of symptoms. So what we're looking for is how to rebalance the body at an underlying root causal level. And much of acne has to do with hormonal-based imbalance, and it has to do with gut-based issues. So for you, I would love you to run two different labs. One is the organic acids test, and number two is the adrenal hormone, or if you want to add the thyroid onto it, I highly recommend. Actually, I would definitely do that, so I take it back. I would do the thyroid adrenal hormone and the organic acids test. Those are my two for you. One is gut-based and one is hormonal-based. The thyroid adrenal hormone will also give you your blood sugar. That's so important for acne as well. If you were to add on one more, of course, I always recommend the Dr. Bell Big 5. So if you can do the Big 5, you always do that because that gives you so much data. It's incredible to look at. And again, I read every single one of the labs that are purchased at equilibriumnutrition.com, and you get a health coaching call with one of my health coaches as well, where we take you through my recommendations. So that is that. I would do those two labs and then a hair tissue mineral analysis to look at high copper as well as low zinc. So without a doubt, thyroid adrenal hormone, organic acids test, if you can do one more, the hair tissue mineral analysis, and of course, if you can do others, the Dr. Brawl Big 5. Megan's up next. Hi, Dr. Brawl. My name is Megan. I've been listening to your podcast a couple years, and I've run many of the protocols, and I'm so thankful to learn from you daily and share your message as many people as I can. I sent today's episode 930 to 15 people. So good. Anyways, I'm a first-year PhD student for human sports performance. Wanted to see if you had any ideas relating to performance and potentially combine it with nutrition intervention that you think would be a good idea for a dissertation topic. I'm kind of lost and want to do something meaningful, and you're immersed in the research, and I really think your opinion would be great. Any gaps that you can think of, I'm open to. The population I have the easiest access to is collegiate athletes at the university I teach at, and we have capabilities to measure in the blood and urine and muscle tissue from biopsies if you see something like that in that irrigation dependent variable. Megan, really amazing. Happy that you wrote in. I would love for you to do a research study and your dissertation on 16-hour fasted nutrition for, you can do it on obviously the collegiate athlete because that's where most of the studies are done. So you'll see, but look at overall population and for men and women, and test the biomarkers of the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, cortisol 4 times per day. Test thyroid as TSH, T4, and T3. Ideally, reverse T4 if you can as well, RT4. And then test insulin and hemoglobin A1C. That's what we run on our thyroid adrenal hormone. If you're able to do that, you will see a large discrepancy in who the longer fast can be, especially if someone is working out fasted in the morning. I mean, that's of most interest to me because I do that all the time, and I show people how it can be fine for some, but for most, especially sports performance, is actually detrimental. The other one, if you're not able to do that, would be if you can do a longer research study, it would be a 1-year plus study on a strictly ketogenic diet with less than 50 grams per day of carbohydrates on an athlete and their performance in terms of muscle building, speed, etc. So those are my recommendations. Keep up the great work. Looking forward to reading your work one day. Sandra is up next. How do you feel about GMOs? Do you ever watch GMO OMG? Does organic mean non-GMO? Okay, let's tackle this question. So GMOs I've done a podcast on this, so you're welcome to just go to stephencabral.com/podcast and type in GMO or genetically modified organism. You could type that in because that's what it stands for. So I don't believe a genetically modified organism is truly a food if we did it in a lab, created it with a virus using typically metals to alter its DNA. I'm not a fan of it. I simply don't want to be a part of this science experiment that we're doing with people. We're also genetically modifying food, not because of this very noble cause of trying to feed the world. We're doing it so that we can use Ready Roundup and other glyphosate and herbicidal-based sprays. So, am I a fan? Absolutely not. Do I eat GMO foods? I do not. And I don't recommend it to others. So, and then people will try to convince me that there's no harm to it. Even if you believe there's no harm in eating GMO food, totally fine. But GMO foods are typically modified so they're also able to be sprayed with pesticide. Now, if we're spraying things with pesticide, well, then that can actually affect our gut function as well. So it doesn't matter to me how we slice it. Not a fan. And does organic mean non-GMO? Yes. If a food is USDA organic, it does mean non-GMO. Maddie's up next. Longer question, so I'm going to try to ad-lib a little bit here. Hello, Dr. Brawl. I was introduced to your podcast about 2 months ago and have since then completed your 7-day detox and doing your CBO protocol. I'm doing your daily nutritional support smoothie. I'm doing the vegetarian lunch, and I'm doing a paleo-style dinner, supplementing with the DNS powder. I feel great. Been reading about different habits and nutritional lifestyles. I've been reading about genes, and I've been reading about one where the diet of a Mediterranean diet benefits, but also reading about the benefits of a diet low in fruit and carbohydrates and high in saturated fat and animal products. Okay, great questions. And do you believe in the vitamins and antioxidants and minerals consistent with the Native American diet style with eating organ meat? Do you have any thoughts of how certain food alters genetic expression? Yes. Okay. Really great. And I've actually answered this quite in depth on a podcast I did with Ben Pakulski on the Muscle Intelligence Show. And I answered this quite in depth on a podcast with Mind Pump. You probably already heard those. Those have come out since then. If you haven't heard of them, just go to cabralsupportgroup.com and just say, what was the show that Dr. Brawl was on about protein with Ben Pakulski? And we'll link it up for you. And what was the show that Dr. Brawl was on with Mind Pump? And we'll link it up for you if you want. So no problem with there. Here's the thing. You can find a study on anything, like honestly, anything at all, like whatever you want to do to prove your point. The problem is we know for sure for 26% of the population that a high saturated fat diet can lead to cardiovascular-based issues and potentially Alzheimer's. It's called the ApoE allele, your allele. Now, the unfortunate thing is when you see an author like this, who you believe is the expert, quote a study, and I'm actually going to remove the book's name because I don't want to talk negatively about anyone, so I'm just going to remove it. I'm just going to get rid of this because my team will not know. There we go. All right. So I don't speak negatively about anybody. It's not something that I've decided to do with my life, so you will never hear me put down anyone. I don't believe in it. People are welcome to say whatever they'd like about other people or me or anybody, but I'm not going to play that game. So, one thing that I want to chat about right now is that for sure, we know it's not right for 26% of the population, okay? So that's just straight off the bat. The second part is this. The higher you increase your protein, the greater chance that we've seen with increasing IGF-1 levels. Now, if you're willing to make the jump that we know that higher IGF-1 levels can allow for greater cancer growth, then we know that this is not going to be a great thing. In terms of saturated fat, the problem is we're trying to rationalize things. You have to understand, Native Americans did eat animals, but they also ate a lot of produce, and not all of us are Native Americans. Like, it's a little different to look at, meaning like we have the ectomorph and vata body type that actually does really well on a lot of fruits and carbohydrates, like extremely well, where the kapha body type and endomorph do not do really well on a lot of starches and carbohydrates. So when we're asking this question and we're making blanket statements, it doesn't make any sense in the first place, because if you look at two people, you can have two people, I say it all the time, at 5'8", and you have one person that's 160 pounds and in great health, and another person that's 200 pounds and in great health. One is the biggest example of the vata body type, and the other is the biggest example of or 150 pounds, and the biggest example of the endomorph body type. And I use this specifically because I'm about 5'8", and although I have probably maybe a little bit more muscle on than an ectomorph would have on their body, I had a client that was, he was 250 something pounds when I met with him. We got him down to 205, and we could get him down to just below 200. But after that, he started to actually get a little too gaunt. And I know that's hard to believe, but he has massive muscular legs by nature. And he's a very, when you talk about bones and people call him big bone, well, his hands and wrists and his joints are just massive, like twice the size of my wrists. And so, of course, he's not going to be, 160 pounds or whatever it might be. So again, and he doesn't do well with a lot of starches. And then again, I'm not a pure ectomorph for sure, but pure ectomorph would do great with a lot of starches, and I do really well with a moderate amount of starches, or I'd say a little bit more than a moderate amount. So diet books like this, or what can I say? It's not an all for one. And then in terms of eating organ meat, I'll never deny that organ meat doesn't contain a ton of vitamins and minerals, and I wouldn't say that it's super high on antioxidants. There's certainly some antioxidants in there, but not compared to plant-based. But, the vitamin content of organ meat is extremely high, especially in the B vitamins as well. So no, I don't deny that at all. I actually don't tell people not to eat it. I've never said that. I never said that at all. It's not that I'm against saturated fats. It's not that I'm against protein at all. I think sometimes we get it misconstrued with my message, and that's only because I'm one of the only people talking about both sides. I actually believe that people need protein and they need some saturated fat. You just can't go overboard. Even the ApoE allele 4 can still take in about 10% from saturated fat. Now, you don't want to go overboard. You'd prefer a little bit more monounsaturated like avocado and olives, but you can still take in some. So we're not saying that. And then more of the ApoE2, which can go up to 35% fat. Certainly they could do a little bit more fat. So that is that. All right. Christina's up next. Thank you, Maddie. Christina's asking, I really need your help. I have yeast and bacterial overgrowth, and no one in Denmark seems to know anything. I'm so upset. I've spent so much money, and I know a lot. No one has your experience, and I really need your yeast protocol. I just know it will help. You are really my last option. Would you do an exception and send it to Denmark? I will pay extra for it, and it would mean that a lot. Kind regards, Christina. So you never have to pay us extra. We don't want that. We sell our Candida and bacterial protocol at the lowest price. It's actually going to go up in 2019 because the price is so insanely low on it. But not insanely low that we need to charge more, but we have to charge more on that protocol, especially when we ship this all over the world. So, it's never that we don't want to ship. We want to ship everywhere. But the problem is we have to deal with the customs issues of shipping to Europe and Australia, New Zealand, etc. But the good news is that as of November 5th, you wrote this on August 26th, Christina, as of November 5th, we actually now ship to Denmark. So that takes care of this issue. Taylor is up next. This is a long question, so I'm going to ad-lib a little bit. It says, Taylor, hey there. Great work, and your passion for what you do is truly inspiring. I'm currently rebounding from a self-treatment for worsening anxiety, depression since 21, currently 26. Every self-treatment is failed. I've decreasing arthritis pain, and I'm hurting all day. It feels like I'm battling anxiety and depression. I didn't grow up feeling this way. I'm so tired of having altered brain chemistry. I've had excessive alcohol abuse from 18 to 24. I no longer consume alcohol, but I'm maintaining the imbalanced state. Okay, I'm searching for Ayurvedic herbs and other remedies that may help. Would really appreciate your insight. Okay, great. I can help with this, Taylor. So one of the things that alcohol does to your body is that it greatly depletes you of neurotransmitters. So if you're a health practitioner out there and you ask someone, what's alcohol been like in your past? And if they used to consume it quite regularly, you can often see someone that's quite low in dopamine, sometimes norepinephrine, and serotonin. And so we're talking about anxiety, and we're talking about feeling overwhelmed and depressed. Well, we're talking about oftentimes people with lower levels of neurotransmitters. So one thing that we do, Taylor, right away is we run right away our starter kit, and that's our organic acids test and our hair tissue mineral analysis. If you do nothing else, that's what we do. And we actually look at all the raw materials that we would be using for those neurotransmitters. And if you're not able to afford that, I understand. If it were me, I would at least get started with what's called the Dr. Cabral Daily Protocol. And I would also add an activated B complex at lunch. I would add 2 drops of the vitamin D at breakfast. And I would most likely add a little bit of the full spectrum magnesium 2 to 3 capsules at dinner, just to get started, okay? Because then that would give you at least a good foundation for how to start to restore a lot of the things in your body. Now, again, I can't cure, treat, or diagnose disease, and especially not over a podcast, right? So I'm just giving you what I may do if I were in your position. Now, if you run the lab test, you'll get hard data, the organic acids test and the hair tissue mineral analysis. Of course, you can run many more if you'd like. You can run the thyroid adrenal hormone. You could run the omega-3 test. Those will all be great. But that's where I would start. So, Taylor, thanks for writing in, and I hope to hear your success story soon. Let's see if we can get in one more question. I'm a fitness coach, a lot of experience with nutrition, exercise, struggling for the last 3 years with a bout of Epstein-Barr virus. And as a result, I became hyperthyroid, having a hard time regulating my body weight. I'm always in the spotlight being in the fitness industry, continually gaining weight. I know I have problems with high estrogen. It's a long question, so I'm just going to give you the ad lib. I'm only eating about 1,200 to 1,400 calories a day. I'm scared to eat. Don't know whether I should be exercising or not exercising. Very frustrated. Track my food diligently. And I'm taking synthetic medicine for my thyroid. Okay, something for DIM instead of TIM for my estrogen and some B vitamins. Okay, so Emily, we see this all the time in my practice, and I'm happy to help. One thing I want you to know is that I don't think that you're hyperthyroid. I'm assuming that you're hypothyroid because you're taking thyroid medication, you're gaining weight. So it sounds like hypothyroid, which is higher TSH. So I know that they can be confusing. So, what I recommend right away, we can help you literally just by running what's called a thyroid adrenal hormone test. And then on top of that, I can't recommend enough the starter kit, the organic acids test, as well as the hair tissue mineral analysis. We need to look at exactly what's going on with your body. Clearly, you're already exercising. Clearly, you're already eating the minimum amount that you can eat. So I always tell this to people, and I talk about it every Wednesday on my Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday shows. There's a lot of people we work with, and it's not fair to tell them that they're not able to lose weight because they eat too much or they exercise too little. You're clearly exercising. You're clearly eating just the bare minimum. This is what happens. I call it when exercise and diet isn't enough, you need to look deeper. And it's typically hormonal and gut-based, and that includes blood sugar dysregulation. So I don't know how to help you specifically until I get some specific labs, and that would be the thyroid adrenal hormone, and then it would be the organic acids test and the hair tissue mineral analysis. Now, if you're not able to afford those, I want to get you started then. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a day or two meals of a higher starch-based meal. Extra sweet potatoes, like 2 sweet potatoes, a bowl of rice pasta, anything that you would like to do with higher starch. I want to restore the leptin and ghrelin levels 2 days in a row. Usually we never do 2 days in a row, but I want your body to know that it's no longer in a survival, stress-based state. And then I would absolutely do a 7, 14, or 21-day Dr. Ball detox, ideally a 21-day Dr. Ball detox. After that, you're going to do another flex meal when it's over, a cheat meal, so to say, to restore those leptin and ghrelin levels. And then you're going to listen to a podcast I did called How to Transition Off a Low-Carb Diet, as well as another podcast that I mentioned yesterday called How Not to Retox After a Detox. So if you want exact recommendations to look at the underlying root cause of what's going on with your body, I recommend the thyroid adrenal hormone, plus the organic acids test, plus the hair tissue mineral analysis, in that order if you're only able to afford them in that order. Now, if you're not able to afford the lab test, I gave you the supplement recommendations that I would personally recommend. So hopefully that is helpful, Emily. And I do know for sure that you'll be able to overcome this because we work with people every single day in your position, and I wish you all the best. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another Cabral House Call. Always great to have you with me here on these weekend editions of the show. Excited, as always, now to be able to transition into our Monday show, the Motivation and Mindset Monday. I do hope you tune into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Take care. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.